The Francis Scott Key Bridge, one of the most iconic images of our skyline. I can't believe that I'll be looking at a skyline without it.
It was disbelief when we saw it broke at 1:30 in the morning. It's disbelief as you stare off into the distance behind me.
It was gone. All the metal, you know, when you look out the window, all these you see, and it was gone. It's unbelievable.
It has been nearly 24 hours now since the disaster on the waters of the Patapsco River that is now believed to have claimed 6 lives and destroyed the iconic bridge that has towered over Baltimore's harbor for almost half a century. Tonight, Governor Moore has ordered flags to half staff across the state of Maryland in recognition of the tragedy. And the city and state are at the beginning of what is certain to be a long road ahead. Welcome to the News at 11. I'm Denise Koch. Thank you for joining us at the end of what has been an extraordinarily trying day for our area, a day that will have profound ripple effects for a long time to come. WJZ remains in your corner tonight, has live team coverage across the area. Christina Mendez and Kelsey Kushner are standing by, and we begin with Rick Ritter in Pasadena, where he has been all day and all night. Rick.
Denise, good evening. It is an eerie feeling out here tonight. An area that was once lit up by the Key Bridge is completely dark tonight as that bridge stands no more. And that feeling of disbelief, that pit that we've had in our stomach all day, has yet to go away, especially after learning tonight, late tonight, that 6 of those workers who fell into the water and were missing are now presumed dead. I've had a chance to speak to a lot of people in this area, some who say they woke up in the middle of the night to what felt like an earthquake when that cargo ship crashed right into the bridge and then it crumbled. Others were actually out here and saw it firsthand play out right in front of their eyes. Take a listen.
Yo! What? Oh my gosh! The Key Bridge, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, just got hit by a cargo ship.
And we also have some video up close of that wreckage shortly after that crash happened, shortly after that bridge came crumbling down. We've had a chance to speak with so many people out here who were not only on the water, but who were here in general. Again, taking it all in, hard to believe that this has happened with so many unanswered questions tonight. And we have also a quick look at the timeline of how this all played out with that cargo ship losing power overnight. The Dolly left port in Baltimore around 12:45 a.m., heading towards the inner harbor. Now, 11 minutes later, it began making a wide arc to complete a U-turn and then move out of the harbor towards open water. From there, trouble began as that ship reached max speed of 8.7 knots and then alerted first responders. Just a few minutes later, the ship slowed to about 1.5 knots, but was already drifting, where it hit the bridge right around 1:30 Tuesday morning.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching us, just lost their steering. So until you get that under control, we got to stop all traffic.
C-13 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
Simple dispatch is direct. That's correct.
And it was that Mayday call that Governor Wes Moore said ultimately ended up saving so many lives, preventing this situation, this tragedy, from being even worse, because fortunately they were able to halt traffic on that bridge. The bridge opened up 47 years ago this week. 30,000 vehicles travel across it every single day, and now one of the most crucial port channels, if you will, for the Port of Baltimore stands no more, and much of that traffic now going to be diverted into the tunnels, into the city itself. Still, so many unanswered questions, an investigation that is going to take months and months to get those answers and to find out exactly what happened here. Our colleague Kelsey Kushner joins us now as our live team coverage continues at 11 o'clock. Kelsey.
Rick, well, we know that those search and rescue efforts have been paused for the evening shortly before the sunset tonight. You know, Coast Guard saying that the conditions out here are just a little too dangerous for their divers. They pulled them out of the water tonight, but plan on putting their divers back in tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. We also know that the search and rescue has now turned into recovery efforts. Of course, Governor Moore saying tonight that is not the outcome we were hoping for. Dive teams raced against the clock for 18 hours, desperately searching for 6 victims in the murky, chilly waters of the Patapsco River after a cargo ship crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, finally calling off that search when conditions became too dangerous.
The extensive search efforts that we've put into it, the water temperature, that at this point we do not believe that we're going to find any of these individuals still alive.
The massive cargo ship named Dolly was leaving the port of Baltimore around 1:30 Tuesday morning, headed to Sri Lanka, when crew members reported power outages and issues maintaining propulsion moments before crashing into a column. Within seconds, traffic was brought to a halt as the bridge collapsed into the river, sending 8 construction workers who were filling potholes on the bridge overnight, plunging over 100 feet into 48-degree cold water. Only 2 of those workers were pulled out alive as operations were brought to a halt Tuesday night.
It's a really heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day. We put every single asset possible, air, land, and sea assets, to bring to add to the members' survivability for these families. We're still fully committed to making sure that we are going to use every single asset to now bring a sense of closure to the families.
The impact of the crash felt by neighbors miles away.
Well, I was sleeping. About 1:30, I felt the vibration of the house vibrating and heard a big bang.
NTSB is now leading the investigation, dispatching a 24-person team to look into the ship's records and examine what's left of the Key Bridge, a staple of Baltimore now left in pieces, some of its wreckage lying on top of the now stalled cargo ship. Both state leaders and the White House say their attention will now turn towards helping the victims' families heal and rebuilding what was once a gateway into Baltimore City.
This is no ordinary bridge. This is one of the cathedrals of American infrastructure. It has been part of the skyline of this region for longer than many of us have been alive. So the path to normalcy will not be easy. It will not be quick.
Now, it is going to be a long road to recovery out here. As for the crew members who were on that cargo ship, we know there were 22 of them. They all are accounted for and are not injured. Reporting live tonight, Kelsey Kushner for WJZ.
All right, Kelsey, thank you. And your heart aches for the victims' families and what they're going through right now. We know these men came from overseas to Baltimore to give their families a better life. Men from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, who came here to provide for their families, living right in the Baltimore and Dundalk community, and simply doing their job at 1:30 in the morning, filling potholes on the bridge when tragedy, the unthinkable, strikes. So again, we're finding out a little more about these. We know also one of those workers tonight identified as Miguel Luna, who has lived in Baltimore for quite some time. CASA gave us a statement. They put that out, shedding some more light on Miguel and by this horrific accident. Sadly, we discovered that one of the construction workers involved was a longtime member of the Casa family, and Casa has identified that member as Miguel Luna of El Salvador, a husband, father of 3, who has lived in Maryland for almost 20 years. Now, the other side of this, the local economy going to be crippled by this, with this channel being down in the port of Baltimore, not having vessels go in or out. Also, 30,000 cars daily drive over that bridge that stands no more. It is going to take a long, long time in terms of the impact this will have on the supply chain to get things right, moving in the right direction. And let's get back to Christina Mendez now, because she's going to touch much more on what this means to our local economy and how many are dealing with this tonight. Christina.
Rick, the Baltimore County executive says those tugboats were actually cut loose before the Dolly's, or ahead of time, the Dolly's pilots and crew lost control of that container ship. The vessel, the size of 3 football fields, went crashing into that column. And WJZ is also uncovering tonight that crews did make attempts to drop the anchor beforehand.
A lot of people are going to feel this.
Just as the Francis Scott Key Bridge was a staple in the Baltimore region skyline, the water below remains a lifeline.
The dive operations in support of the Francis Scott Key Bridge
a livelihood for many.
It's going to hurt. It's definitely going to hurt us.
The owner of Ditch Hag Sport Fishing, Captain Gus Clifton, brought WJZ to the front lines of the collapse near Fort Carroll.
Now to see this after fishing on this river for 50 years is incredible. I've never seen anything like it ever in my life. This is absolute devastation.
The devastation ripples through the ecosystem that is the Port of Baltimore, just beyond the container ships strung with steel. The 9th busiest port in the U.S., according to census data, handled more than $80 billion in import-exports in 2023, the most in 20 years, and connects 15,000 people with direct jobs.
In many ways, our work is just beginning. To rebuild this bridge and deal with impacts in the meantime, to reopen this port and deal with supply chain impacts.
The port is also home to Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines. A ship full of passengers out at sea was scheduled to return to the city on Sunday, but will now head south to Norfolk, where buses will bring people back to Baltimore. With the weight of the economy hanging in the balance, President Joe Biden vows to take the burden of rebuilding the bridge off Marylanders and reopen the port as soon as possible.
It's my intention that the federal government will pay for the entire cost of reconstructing that bridge. I expect the Congress to support my effort.
And tonight, the Port of Baltimore does say that any vessel traffic in and out of the port is suspended, although trucks are able to get inside still. I'm reporting live from Waters Marina in Sparrows Point. I'm Christina Mendez for WJZ.
And Christina, President Biden, when he spoke earlier today, saying the federal government will move heaven and earth to get that bridge rebuilt quickly and also to get the Port of Baltimore open back on the water. Christina, thank you. And Denise, we'll get ready to send it back to you in studio. And as I wrap up out here tonight, the people who live in this community and many who came up to me and said, I'm holding my kids closer tonight. I'm holding my families closer tonight, because you think about these families, these victims' families, and what they're going through. The heartache of their loved ones being out there simply doing their job at 1:30 in the morning and never made it back home. Denise, back to you.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Rick. And thank you, and Christina and Kelsey, for your good work all day long. Well, as we know, this tragedy has a far-reaching impact. And across our community, Marylanders are, as always, looking out for one another. Jessica Albert is on your corner in Turner Station, where a prayer vigil was held at a community church earlier this evening.
One thing I know about those of us in Baltimore, whether you're in Baltimore City or in Baltimore County, whenever there is a tragedy, we come together.
The power of prayer is what's getting members of the Turner Station community through an unthinkable tragedy. Turner Station is located not far from where the historic Francis Scott Key Bridge once stood.
It's heartbreaking. It's catastrophic and something that we would think that never would happen in our lifetime.
In just a matter of hours, elected leaders, faith leaders, and community members put together a prayer vigil to honor the construction workers who were on the bridge filling potholes when it collapsed early Tuesday morning. The vigil Tuesday night was held at Mount Olive Baptist Church. Rashard Singletary is the church's pastor.
As a faith community, we wanted to come together to support not only the victims of this disaster, but also for the community at large, just to make sure that at the end of the day, they're covered in prayer.
Amen. The vigil also honored the first responders who worked throughout the day to search for the construction workers who remained missing in the water.
We lift up in prayer the incredible first responders who, without hesitation, sprung into action. Our fire departments, our police departments, our Coast Guard, thank you, first responders, for being servants of God.
Community members tell me they will continue to come together and support one another as they grieve the lives lost and the loss of the Key Bridge, a prominent structure in this community. Reporting in Baltimore County, Jessica Albert for WJZ.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, still to come on WJZ News at 11, the shock and sorrow continues spreading across Baltimore and beyond, and faith leaders are stepping in, as we just saw what the Archbishop of Baltimore is saying about the power of belief in times of tragedy.
And parts of the area saw a few showers this evening. Looks like we're going to see more rain for the next couple of days. We'll have your complete First Alert forecast coming up.
The Key Bridge collapsed just around 1:30 this morning.
That's devastating. Yeah. It's a monument. It's like gateway to Baltimore.
I could have been on that bridge.
My heart goes out to the people of Baltimore. We're praying for them.
As we just saw, faith leaders across our area are stepping up in the wake of the bridge collapse with multiple services praying for those impacted. Baltimore Archbishop William Lori dedicated a local church's mass to create a space for people to pray about the tragedy. Dennis Valera attended the service tonight in North Baltimore.
5:30 on Tuesday is a typical time for Mass at the Cathedral of Mary Our Queen. But this Tuesday, some people came for a special reason.
Let us ask the Lord for the strength.
Archbishop William Lori called on the community to come together in prayer in light of the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. 6 construction workers are now presumed dead, with search and rescue efforts turning into a recovery operation Wednesday morning. Natalie Gajardo says her fiancé is from Sparrows Point. The bridge was a big landmark for them.
Having a real personal connection to that area, and that it's just something that's going to affect everybody here. I think it's important that we can all come together and show our support and pray.
A key message of Tuesday's Mass was outreach, reminding people to help those impacted by the Key Bridge collapse. Archbishop Lori told us the diocese has already reached out to the families of the construction workers.
Father Akko, who is the pastor of Sacred Heart of Jesus in Highland Town, has actually been with the families and has been offering them comfort and love and support during this difficult time.
Archbishop Lori says helping these families won't end anytime soon.
We need to hold each other in this moment as much as we can and hold each other's pain as well as comfort one another.
Reporting in Baltimore, I'm Dennis Valera for WJZ.
Our hearts are bruised.
All right, keeping a close eye on the forecast here for the next couple of days as we're going to be tracking some showers. We saw a little bit of preview of that this evening with a few light showers in the area. And, of course, the weather for the next couple of days, Saturday into Easter Sunday. We'll be right back.
WJZ Radar is brought to you by Len the Plumber Heating and Air.
The beautiful Francis Scott Key Bridge was built and opened exactly 47 years ago, March 21st, an anniversary marked just this past weekend. Bianna Massey is looking back at the bridge's history and its impact on the growth of Baltimore over the past decades.
March 23rd, 1977, Baltimore welcomed the Key Bridge, spanning across the Patapsco River, completing the eastern sector of I-695.
The bridge was a key part of, the skyline of our infrastructure. It knits together the fabric of communities.
Connecting Dundalk to Baltimore and Baltimore to the world. Construction on the 1.6-mile bridge started in 1972 to ease congestion throughout the city. Nicholas Redding, CEO and president of Preservation Maryland, says the estimated $110 million project filled a major void in transportation, shipping, and infrastructure.
They knew that there had to be a second crossing, and initially they thought that they would build a tunnel, but the reality was the tunnel was going to be too expensive, and this bridge would not only be cheaper, but would allow them to move a lot of materials in a pretty heavily congested area.
One of the longest truss bridges in the United States, named after Francis Scott Key, who was inspired to write the Star-Spangled Banner after witnessing the bombardment of Fort McHenry in 1814.
As it's believed that Key was about 100 yards away, give or take, from the bridge itself when he was aboard ship and penned what would become our Star-Spangled Banner.
Also nestled between Fort Carroll and its 47 years, the iconic bridge has undergone many changes, and perhaps the most notable, its expansion to the lanes leading up to it.
There was expansion efforts to make sure that there were 4 lanes meeting it on either side. So there have been upgrades, expansions done to this facility over the years.
aiding the nearly 31,000 people that MDTA says traveled the bridge each and every day, and over 11 million a year.
Sometimes we take things like this for granted, and then when we lose them, we really see the impact quite profoundly. The effort to rebuild it is going to be equally historic because it's going to be a big effort to not only do that, but to do it quickly, safely.
I'm Miana Massey for WJZ.
Thank you, Miana. Well, coverage on this historic tragedy continues tomorrow on CBS Mornings. There'll be live interviews with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and the FBI. And we'll be back after this.
Tomorrow on WJZ Mornings, if you haven't been hearing well lately, we'll tell you when you should get screened, plus a new study that suggests hearing aids could improve your longevity.
We're reducing the risk of earlier death by up to 24%.
Wake up with us.
We have a programming alert for you as our breaking news coverage of the Key Bridge collapse preempted The Young and the Restless, as well as The Bold and the Beautiful. They will air in full at 1:37 and 2:37 a.m. this morning. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court today heard a major challenge to medication abortion, which some observers have warned could impact even states like Maryland, where abortion remains legal. Now, the justices appeared skeptical of limiting access to the drug. Last year, a Texas judge ruled the FDA wrongly expanded access to mifepristone in 2016, clearing it to be used as late as 10 weeks gestation and allowing the pills to be sent through the mail. The Supreme Court expected to make a decision by late June. And this evening at Camden Yards, the Orioles hold a practice ahead of Thursday's scheduled home opener of the baseball season. Now, this was originally scheduled as a public workout and fans rally, but the team decided against that in the wake of the Key Bridge tragedy. The O's are set to open the season at Camden Yards on Thursday afternoon, playing against the LA Angels. First pitch set for 3:05. And we'll be right back.
Tonight,
who's with me? Come on!
Colbert's New with the legendary Carol Burnett. Tonight on CBS.
It has been a difficult day for our city, our region, and our state, and we are facing together a very long road ahead to recovery. But we will recover. On behalf of our entire WJZ News team, thanks for trusting us to bring you this story. See you tomorrow.